Thank you, everyone. Sorry, we are about 2-3 minutes delayed, but we are very happy to have you here, and we got very excellent response for our webinar. So each one of you, welcome, and thank you for spending and pulling out time. This is our webinar on how AI will shape M&A in the future, how M&As are going to evolve in the AI age. And we have Eric Winston, who is a general counsel of Mphasis, whom I have known him for many, many years, and I've known Mphasis for many, many years. But I would like Eric to tell a little bit about himself and Mphasis, and also tell, right, the role which AI is playing in Mphasis generally, and would love to know more about you, Eric, before we start into real questions.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Vaibhav. And as Vaibhav said, we've worked together for many years. I rely on Vaibhav and his team in the many M&A transactions, cross-border transactions, and in other areas as well. And he's a very valuable partner, as is Nishith Desai, to our company. So thank you for that. Before I get started, I just wanted to make it clear that the views, thoughts, and opinions that I express during this session are my own and do not necessarily reflect the views, thoughts, and opinions of my employer, Mphasis. So I'm the General Counsel and Chief Compliance, Ethics, and Risk Officer at Mphasis. I've been at Mphasis for about 8 years. I am based out of our New York office, and Mphasis is an India, Bangalore-based IT services company that works with some very sophisticated clients. And so I think it puts us, and perhaps me, in a unique position to understand, what's going on the global technology services scene and consulting scene across industries. Because my company focuses on application development, management, cloud services, digital transformation, and modernization. And in particular, we've got a whole team and built several platforms that are dedicated to artificial intelligence. The other thing I'll mention is the company was born in 1998, founded by 2 Citibank CIOs who wanted to help banks embrace the internet as a way of doing business. At that time, internet was sort of in its more nascent stages. And it's not surprising that for us as a company, financial services is a big part of our business, because that's part of our engineering DNA. And we, of course, service other verticals as well: insurance, healthcare, high tech, retail, logistics, etc. But in particular, we're known for our modernization of legacy systems, and AI has been a big part of how we help our clients in relearning and rewriting legacy applications. Say, as an example, the rewriting of COBOL to Java, which is something that one of our AI platforms can do in a unique way. In addition to rewriting the code, it can map the business logic, the rules, and document those applications. I guess that's my brief introduction. The one thing I wanted to say before we get more into our free-flowing fireside chat was, I think people are aware of what Moore's Law is, which is, for those of you who don't know, is that the number of transistors per square inch on a microchip will double every year, while the costs halve every year, or 18 months it was ultimately revised to. There's a gentleman who's sometimes credited with a quote, Roy Amara, who was a scientist, that we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimated in the long run. And I think it holds true if you think back to the internet, if you think back to cloud, and now I think in AI, we're sort of in these more, I'll say, nascent stages.
Thank you, Eric. Eric, you're very modest. Eric has been leading lawyer, general counsel for past 20 years across several companies. And he has led, guided many companies, or at least 3 of them, on their various phases of their life. So there is no one whom I know is a better person than to talk about this topic. So I once again welcome Eric, you, and all the audience, you, to ABA's our General Counsel series, right? Where we are having a face-to-face talk, one-on-one with General Counsel on topics which is going to, in my view, change the world in the future. So thank you, Eric, once again. Welcome. Let us get into the main topic. I am extremely excited. I think we are all blessed that we are living in such an exciting time. We always used to say that change is the only constant, right? I will modify it in today's world to say that the only predictable thing is unpredictability. Things are changing so fast, things are moving so fast that the next 6 months or 12 months is very unpredictable on how things are going to grow. And in this unpredictability, in this chaos, lies the excitement of having to navigate, having to see and visualize how things are going to change, where are the opportunity, where are the threats, how we are going to evolve, and enjoy the ride, enjoy the process of evolvement. AI, is the buzzword today from everywhere. Our prime minister, presidents of the world, they are all talking about AI. If you really look at it, AI is changing everything what we do, right? And M&A is no difference, right? M&A will also change drastically. And if you really see, when I really see M&A process, right, I will pull it out into 3 broad buckets. One is the deal screening, sourcing, and identifying targets. The second is the M&A process, diligence, or legal diligence, or financial diligence, the documentation and stuff like that. And the third is also post M&A, integration, planning, and others. Now, when I look at each sector, AI is already changing things. In fact, Bain report suggests that 85% of the users have actually told that they use AI, and AI actually meets or exceeds their expectation in what they expected, it to do, which means that it is really living up to the hype. I was talking to several other people where most technologies in the past are overhyped and underdelivered, but AI possibly is bucking the trend by delivering or over-delivering in shorter time frame than the hype is. And which is why we are all talking about this particular topic today. So let's go to the question 1, deal sourcing. How is AI affecting deal sourcing? And, I would like Eric to kind of tell his experience, his thoughts on deal screening, deal sourcing.
Yeah, sure. Look, I'll say a few things that I think we're all aware of, which is that AI can identify and chug through data a lot faster, a lot more efficiently than, say, an analyst or a team of analysts can. And, AI can identify market trends, evaluate industries, spot emerging market opportunities, doing the data aggregation and analysis using both structured and unstructured data, right? As sources, financial reports, news articles, social media, in our world as lawyers looking at intellectual property and patents, identifying trends, identifying areas where there are even new competitors and areas of growth. It can analyze that historical market performance and potentially predict future trends, helping to identify growth sectors in geographical areas. For companies like us, often we're focused on even capabilities, right? What capabilities are growing? What capabilities are there more competitive situations going on? It can be similar kinds of analysis in terms of, targeting assessment needs, and prioritizing criteria. I'll just digress for 1 second, Vaibhav, to tell you perhaps about a real case that Emphasis had been engaged in for a private equity firm, where we developed an AI-powered diligence platform for them that augmented the work that their analysts were doing manually, going through many, many sources to hone and develop what they called sort of purchase criteria. We took their criteria and we implemented, a combination of AI, NLP, and deep learning to automate that analysis and to create detailed, specific, tailored reports. And the neat thing about what was developed was it was a solution that was, of course, as we all know, self-learning, and a model that could enhance itself and get more granular on various aspects. So it's real, Vaibhav, and I'm sure we've all seen there are some vendors out there that are offering solutions, but I think it's exciting and it creates tremendous efficiency and cost savings.
Yeah, I agree. As I said, things have been real in terms of the way AI has been able to augment people's capabilities, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
Let us jump into the actual M&A process, right? Where you do financial diligence, legal diligence, you do deal documentation, you do kind of roadblocks, risk assessment, right? Negotiations, right? So the whole process of negotiations of M&A, which has been extremely, what do I call, heavy in terms of efforts which we all put in, whether it is the business team, the in-house legal team, or external counsel, or both sides. And we have all been into several negotiations call which last hours and hours, or we have all seen people burning midnight oil where they don't sleep for days together just churning out the documents so that we can try to close the deal. And it still takes a lot of time to kind of do this process and close the deal. How do you think AI is going to affect each part of it? You think it's going to help? It's going to speed up the things? It's going to, what do you think the role which AI will play in the actual M&A process?
So I think one thing I'd say is, in particular, where there's a data-intensive work that we're engaged in, generative AI can be extremely helpful. And then, of course, we need to think about data quality and so on as well. But I think starting with due diligence and that work, there's no doubt that reviewing, a virtual data room, a VDR, looking at customer contracts as an example, reviewing those contracts to determine whether they're, within your tolerance levels or not, in particular on specific clauses that we all know that can be problematic in an acquisition. that's without a doubt one place. I think also, right, some examples that come to mind in due diligence are HR and all the work that goes on in HR. And I think not only does it inform, I don't want to skip ahead, inform the diligence aspects and so on, but it also helps to determine things like, what are hotspots for integration? What are hotspots potentially for cultural fits and things of that nature? And then it also, in due diligence, can help us identify what's missing, right? In addition to chugging through the data room, it can identify, key pieces of information or collateral documents that are not there, and then generate follow-up reports or data requests from the target to further augment and fill out, what may be needed in the data room. The other thing I'd say, Vaibhav, is this is a focus on say the VDR. The neat thing that you can do is look at, I'll call due diligence outside of the VDR, right? Looking at public records, looking at, say, is there litigation in courts? As I mentioned earlier, is there IP? What's the employee sentiment? Looking at Glassdoor, looking at LinkedIn, looking at X, looking at things that are published by employees to get a flavor for the culture, to get a flavor for employee satisfaction and things of that nature. So I think in due diligence, it has, wide-ranging implications. And then I know one of the focuses of this session a bit was to talk about cross-border. In due diligence, we've, as you know, because we've worked with you on these cross-border transactions, is sometimes you have agreements or you have documents in alternative languages with alternative jurisdictional implications. And so in that regard, generative AI can help you translate and understand those documents, et cetera, to perform, tremendous time savings and so on. I'll pause there, but I think, I know there's more to your question. I'll answer more, but I know I've said a lot.
No, thank you, Eric. No, this is very interesting and amazing. I have seen, and in my experience, let me add to what you said, right? I was talking to a client of ours who was basically, what they do is they collate all the information from various places. In India, we have an MCA portal which gives a lot of information about the company. Then you have all the judgments, which gives, which is available online, which one can plug in. Then there are all the filings, the SEC filings. There are news reports, public information. So when you collate everything, and he has put a generative AI on top of it, right, which can actually analyze all the data. And some of the insights what you are able to get is mind-blowing, right? You want to know what is a related party transaction, you will be able to get it, right? Because now you are able to connect various different dots together, which otherwise was not apparent, but now it will be apparent. And certain things you can identify, which traditionally in past we could never identify, right? So something can throw up, which in my mind will be really amazing, because what it means that it will reduce the chance of surprises or nasty surprises which one used to get after the acquisition. So this, in my mind, has been the huge value addition which generative AI is able to do, is ability to join the dots, ability to spot issues, patterns, which allows you to identify where there's a potential hotspot, potential risk, which you need to worry about, right? So that is one side of things. In fact, the discussion which I had with him was saying that should I even open this up for people, because I'm worried that I'll be opening Pandora's box, right? So those are the situations where it come in. Other interesting aspect which I was talking to someone else is, you take there are litigation or all the issues what you identify, right, including litigations which are going on the target. what is the downside of that litigation? What is likely to happen? Is this case going to win? They're going to win. Or they are able to defend. Or if there's a risk, what is a risk? Earlier, really, you depended on some of the lawyers who would say, hey, in this high court, this is what will happen, and this is the chances, and we cannot really say, and you will try to use indemnity or escrow as kind of a risk mitigation strategies. But now you can actually analyze the risk much more clearly in a better way. You can predict whether it is likely to create a huge risk or it is not likely to create huge risk, which means your risk assessment improves and you now have lesser, lesser requirement to rely on indemnity and some of the alternate mechanisms, which will make life easier for both the companies, the acquirer and the acquiree. So that is pretty exciting too, right? Third is regulations, right? How regulations are changing, whether it is antitrust regulations or some of the other regulations, and how you are able to do analysis to know what is the best way to proceed. So what I'm seeing is the whole area of M&A is becoming extremely interesting, and AI is able to help you reduce the risk on identifying and going ahead with the transaction. So the risk assessment, the risk mitigation kind of improves. Similarly, on the other side, the deal generation, deal document generation, right? So if I have to do drafting and stuff like that, there are several softwares available which one can use to improve on your drafting, to speed up your drafting. You no longer require to spend hours and hours to generate a draft and send it to other side. It can be pretty fast. I'll just give an example. We use Luminance, and Luminance has become extremely useful in generating our documents. You can ask, because they've integrated generative AI in it, you can ask questions. You can say, hey, can you draft this this particular clause in a better way, right? And you can get much better. But you can say, hey, can you explain to me what this clause actually means, right? In terms of a particular risk or a particular thing, right? So that is the additional advantage what we have seen it, right? And for who knows, Luminance has actually done an experiment where they have negotiated a document using AI on one side and humans on the other side, and that actually worked well. So who knows, tomorrow you may have a AI negotiating with other AI, and we can sit and relax on the beach where our AI, our personas will negotiate against the other personas. But that aside, we are seeing a lot of different areas where AI is actually helping the M&A the process. But you alluded to a little bit on integration planning. Can you go a little further on integration planning and kind of tell where AI is going to be used?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of places in integration planning, right? So I think we all know, sort of as M&A practitioners, particularly for me as in-house counsel, I'll say the legal stuff takes a lot of work, but the integration planning, that upfront work that ultimately leads to the integration execution, is, I think, key to the success of any acquisition. And so it's, I can't overstate how important it is. But I think some of the things that Gen AI can do for us are to, identify and map the data from, unstructured, structured sources that would help determine the degree of integration of various things. Take, for example, IT systems, finance systems, CRM systems, HR, payroll, all these sorts of systems to prepare you for what will that look like, what needs to be integrated, and to what extent. I think also where I've seen some hot spots in M&A are in what I'll call the softer areas, right? I think also employees that that are coming along with the transaction, and that cultural fit is also key. So looking at a lot of those HR related things, whether it's simple things like How many vacation days do folks get? What are their health benefits? Here in the U.S., a big thing is 401k and 401k match, and to what extent do employees have that? So you can identify those integration hotspots, plan for them early, and then develop the execution plan through Gen AI that can ensure that it's timely implemented. The other area, which of course we all know is key, is what I'll call broadly the deal synergies. And by deal synergies, I mean, right, there are obviously two sides to that. How do we realize the cost synergies? And how do we realize those revenue synergies? How do we make sure we execute on both of those things timely? And so I plan for them up front through generative AI, and then I create the project plan and the execution plan for post integration execution, so that I'm hitting the ground on day zero with that plan in place.
No, absolutely. I think that is really useful. Looking ahead, right? We always want to look at things in a short-term, medium-term, and long-term perspective. If I have to ask you, how do you think AI will evolve in M&A scenario from short-term, medium-term, and long-term perspective?
Yeah, so I think some of the items we've talked about, I think absolutely helping to analyze and source targets. I think clearly due diligence is here, and how can we do due diligence faster? How can we do it more efficiently? How can we do it more cost effectively? I think those are all short-term, low-hanging fruit. Medium-term, things like valuations, looking at valuations, negotiation support, and then as I mentioned, integration planning and integration execution, certainly in the medium term. And then longer term, we start to think about what I'll call, the old phrase of sort of straight through processing. Is there a fully optimized M&A process that we can come up with that longer term shortens the deal cycle tremendously, right? We all know that deal certainty is a key important item when it comes to M&A, and I think implementing these short, medium, and longer term help to create that deal certainty.
No, absolutely. In fact, let me add a little bit to what you said on my view on short term, medium term, long term, right? So short term, what is there today, really speaking, is your drafting, your diligence, right?
Yes.
The ability to help you, right? Close the things faster, right? We talked about it. Medium term, as you rightly mentioned, right, is something which will allow you to help you predict, right, whether this will be a good merger or not, right, or good acquisition or not, right? How will the things, and even I feel that in medium term, right, a lot of our, all of us will have agents, and agents will go and do things, right, which will be multiple times. So, if I was negotiating a particular document, my agent will go and do the drafting of the document. Another agent will go and look at the employment side. So I will be able to give time to more than one person. And so the bottleneck, which kind of elongated that time, will actually shorten completely. I was very jovially or jocularly saying that, I will be sitting at the beach and my agent will negotiate. But on a medium term, actually, I think this would be a reality. Already we have fireflies which attend the webinars and take notes and tell you the summary. That already happens. In future, once those people know your style, your language, they become your digital twin. Your digital twin will go and not just hear, but also negotiate on your behalf. And you can be doing something else while the negotiation is on, and they will tell you 3 or 4 items which you will require your inputs, right, to close the mat. So the way I'm looking at it, in medium term, your ability to multitask will improve. In a long term, I think you will have, digital twins are already a big thing. And if you do a digital twin of a company, your company as well as target, and you merge the digital twins and do a simulations, you will know how successful this merger or this acquisition will be, and how much value it will add to your stakeholders. So you will need to be able to predict, right? So even before you do a deal, you will know what value you will get out of them. So you will be able to price the deal more accurately, more better, negotiate it much better in terms of what you are paying to the shareholders and stuff. So I am extremely uh, excited to see how things are going to really go on long-term basis using AI, because please let us understand what we have seen today. AI is tip of the iceberg.
Yep.
The capability of AI is nothing. It is just generative AI. We have not seen AGI yet. We have not seen ASI yet, which is the artificial general intelligence or artificial super intelligence, where the capability of what they can do will be like 100 times more than what we have access today. So it will be really, really amazing on how that's going to change the M&A process. But coming forward, we talked about agents and agentic AI, which is a reality today, right? How do you see, or do you explain what different roles, right, this agentic AI, or however roles will get agentized, right? Or agentic AI will actually replace us or augment us um, in the M&A process.
Yeah, so we've been talking, right, I think I'll say generally about 4 different areas that I think are closer term or short term places where Gen AI can be useful for us and provide tremendous efficiency. And I think as I think about it, right, it's that agentic AI that can be leveraged, as you said, to have this digital twin, right? Certainly there's what we've talked about was sort of an M&A analyst, someone who is doing the screening and the sourcing and the work that goes along with identifying potential targets, and that agentic AI digital twin can do all that work for you while you sit on the beach, chugging through the mountains of data, the historical deal performance, market trends, and screen and identify targets. Similarly, in due diligence, right, there are lots of roles there in diligence. I know when we go through diligence, we've got, lawyers, you've got folks in finance, you have HR professionals, you have tax professionals, your CIO, your CRO, lots of folks. And again, you can think of it as at least one agent or multiple agents, even for various aspects of what those folks do, doing that work for them. Now, it doesn't mean there isn't some oversight, which I think we'll talk about later, but what it means is there's tremendous time savings, efficiency, and automation that can go on with that, and identifying those risks, red flagging those risks, and as we've said, even highlighting what's missing. Similarly, an integration manager, a PMI consultants, who some of us may hire. I think certainly agents can do those, a lot of those roles themselves. Now, again, it may need to be augmented, likely to be augmented with humans. And then when it comes to negotiation, same thing. As you've mentioned, Vaibhav, we, and as lots of us do, use AI to review documents, implement our playbooks, our M&A playbooks on deal terms and conditions and structures and models. So again, various agents helping in those aspects. All those are either here or in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I think amazing. Thank you, Eric. Before I go to the next question, I just want to tell the audience that if you have any questions, put it up in the chat box. So post the discussion. If we have time, depending on the time, we can ask questions to people, right? So I'm to Eric, right? So please add up if you have any questions. So let's move on to the next point. Next question. You know, every technology has benefits and risk, and AI also comes with their own benefits and risks. We have talked about benefits. Maybe you can add a little bit more, but risks are very important. And before we actually go gung-ho on AI, we need to understand what the risks are, right? So what, according to you, are the benefits and risks, what we should really look out for when we start using AI in M&A process?
Yeah, so I think, in terms of the risks, I think one is, as we've sort of alluded to earlier, one, your information, garbage in, garbage out. You've got to be very careful. How good is the data? What's the data quality? So all of it presupposes that the data is good data, to a certain extent, and then the accessibility of the data, right? So one issue also stems from privacy and privacy issues, and confidentiality issues. The VDR, it may not be as easy to get into the VDR on the buy side, and to transmit data, say cross-border. We've got to be careful about what does that implicate in terms of cross-border restrictions on AI and on privacy. The other thing I'll say, which is a risk, and maybe we've all seen and heard of, the LLM hallucinations, right? So you've got to be careful. You've got this black box that's doing this work for you, but it's not without these potential hallucinations. And an example that, Vaibhav, that I think you and I have talked about in the past is this one here in the US, where this lawyer did a brief for the court, handed in his brief. He used Gen AI to write the brief for him, and the brief contained a case that it relied on that didn't exist, right? So there are these hallucinations that happen in these black boxes. And so, as an example, here in the US, in certain jurisdictions, the courts have taken actions to say, that AI requires legal oversight, attorney oversight. And, they want visibility even to the use of AI, the monitoring of AI, et cetera. So I think there are those risks, and the other risk, which should give us lawyers some comfort, is it does need human oversight, right? It does need, that intuition and judgment that AI can't give it, right? And the example I'll use too is sitting across the table from somebody and having the discussion about various things at a target. You're going to get a plethora of information that AI wouldn't get. You'll learn about that individual. You'll learn about his leadership skills or her leadership skills. And so the human connection, where it is key in various aspects, and that sort of, I'll call it those soft things that we think about, we still need to keep close tabs on and make sure that we grab onto and use, and that those things become part of our analysis and input into the decisions we make.
Yeah, thank you. Eric, next question, which I'm going to ask, is possibly one of the most important questions which a lot of audience is waiting for. I was talking to a general counsel recently and asking him, how you think AI is going to change it, right? And he was lamenting, saying that, hey, I tough time getting my people to use AI. And I asked why, and he says, they think they will replace them, so they don't want to use AI because, if AI start doing what they do, what will they do, right? And they are worried. There are several in-house counsels here in the audience, and there are several external outside counsels too. I would want to ask you, as a general counsel of a large firm who has done M&As and been general counsel for over 20 years, what is your thoughts on how the role of in-house counsel change and how the role of your outside counsel change. What will be your expectation? And I'm not talking you as a general counsel of Emphasis, right? I'm asking you as any general counsel. Your expectation change vis-a-vis the external law firms.
Yeah, so I think in every profession all across, right? Same issue people are concerned about when it comes to folks who are doing application development. Just like, are we going to be replaced? I think it's natural to have that concern or that fear. I think, as I see it, AI will absolutely replace these repetitive tasks, and many of them sort of in document review, document redlining, due diligence, the things we've talked about here today, and speed up that process and reduce errors. But at the same time, I think what it does is, I know, to take your joke, it doesn't necessarily mean we can all sit on the beach. What I think it really means is we all can focus upstream, focus on strategy, focus on where we can add value, where we can add, analysis on more complex, new and even nuanced judgment calls. So I think we can all migrate to what I think is the more interesting work that lawyers can do, right? Provide advice, provide guidance, think about, the details of regulatory issues, ethical considerations, navigate and interpret laws, which are, I think, when we all went to law school, that was, I think, what excited us, right? It's not necessarily chugging through documents in due diligence. So I think it creates opportunity. I think it creates time to focus on those more strategic things, and bring to bear all of our experience that we've had through the years of working, and gives us that human interaction, more human interaction, working more closely with clients. If you're outside counsel, giving them that personalized advice and personalized service, building trust, and helping to understand their business and create sort of this holistic view of strategy, which is why I value, you, Vaibhav, and the other lawyers I work with. They know our business, they know what we're trying to achieve, they know our strategy. And so for outside counsel to be able to do that and focus on that versus, repetitive commodity work, I think is a home run for all of us.
Excellent, excellent. In fact, let me add a little bit to what you say. I've internally been talking to a lot of general counsels and in-house counsels in trying to understand what it means for an outside counsel like us. And everybody has told us, don't worry, we will not replace you with AI, right? So you will be there. Your role will change, right? We are no longer going to come to you to ask you things which AI can do, right? But we will want you to, or we may come to you and say, hey, do me, but use AI to do it so that you can do it faster, better, and pass on the benefits to us, right? So a lot of people have told us, but invariably everybody has told us that the outside counsel is going to be there, the role will change, or they will be expected to do AI, use AI and do it faster and pass the benefits. But outside counsel is not going away, right? Now, having said it, I have made this statement in my firm and I'm making it across various forums that 50% of what we did today will be done by AI and technology, right? No longer we need to be relying on what we used to do in the past as a guide of how we will do it in the future, right? Which means we need to constantly think of newer and newer things of what we can do. Innovation will be key. Ability to use AI to provide value to the clients will be the key, right? I think your CEO made this statement, which I heard from you, that AI is not going to replace humans, but AI is going to replace humans who don't use AI, right? And I find this to be a very profound statement because invariably, right, we we'll all need to use technology. We will all need to go and think that, look, if something is being done efficiently by technology, how can I add value to that particular things, right? You know, Nishith, who is my managing partner, also says this very, very often, that if you really look at the you know, if you look at the information, right, we can put into four buckets. You have raw data, you have information, you have knowledge, you have wisdom, right? Raw data is the data which you use to train AI. Information is when you format data in a particular way that it is actually useful, that's information. When you analyze data, right, and make a view, that's knowledge. And when you put your experience to a knowledge, it becomes wisdom, right? Earlier in early 90s, if some of you've seen that age, there were a lot of information arbitrage because people who had information really could make money, right? And we saw whether it was on Indian stock market or every other place where you would see information arbitrage to make money. When internet came, right, information became ubiquitous. Then people moved to knowledge. Knowledge was something which people said, here is the information, but if I analyze it, if I give my view it, my judgment to it, then that's knowledge, right? And that's how we started making money, right? Then when AI comes, in my view, the knowledge will become ubiquitous. It will be available to everyone. And that is where we will need to add our experience, right? Use that as a base, use AI as a base, and convert that into wisdom, where we will put our experience to what AI says, to either just tweak it to make it more valuable or to confirm, right? Saying that, hey, this is what AI is saying is true or not, and or tweak it, right, to make it more valuable, right? Use your experience to add to the wisdom. And that is where I think our value will be there. Again, as I said, the only predictable thing is unpredictability. So, 12 months down the line, I may be saying something very different. Right? But that is where the way I look at it, law firms will change, their business model will change, their staffing will change. It's going to be very interesting. I think more law firms will look like legal tech firms and more legal tech firms will look like law firms, right? They'll be blurred in some point in time in the future. It is, as I said, we are living in an exciting time. But let me move forward. We are running out of time. But for a lot of enterprises who are tuning in, right? What is your your advice on what AI imperatives should they take?
So I think, what I draw on is what I'm seeing throughout the business world, not just M&A, but across, all large enterprises. They're investing in and building AI solutions to, help them, as you said, create efficiencies, for cost savings, to perform various tasks more quickly, and to become more scalable. And so I think it's at the heart of AI will become sort of the heart of various enterprises. I think also there's the risk side, which we talked about, which is, there needs to be guidelines and guardrails around what we use AI for, ethical, bias kinds of actions that we need to be on the lookout, but we need to enable experimentation. I think if we look at where we can come up with in the short term, it can be leveraged, great, but we also need to think long term. And then, the comfort that we should all draw as lawyers is there's no doubt there'll be the requirement of human oversight, expertise, judgment, human interactions throughout the M&A transaction cycle, because you need that critical expertise and judgment to make tough decisions. But as we've seen again in all industries, things will be digitized, and I'd rather stay ahead of that curve than have it happen to me. So I encourage us all to experiment and stay open-minded and embrace the new technologies.
Thank you. Any final thoughts? We have what, 5 minutes left. So any final thoughts before we just take questions? We covered some of the questions and answers already in the questions, but any final thought before we go to questions?
No, I think it's an exciting time for us. I'll just say, as I talk about some of the solutions that Emphasis is building for its clients, one of which I described in due diligence, and others throughout other kinds of enterprises, I think that sometimes the lawyers are the last to get these kinds of technologies. And so, I would encourage you again to experiment, to do what you need to do to implement and fail fast, and rethink and leverage AI technology, because I think it will make our lives easier, and as I've said, allow us to focus on the non-commodity work, to focus on higher value work, and to be even more integrated with our clients to help guide them specifically on transactions and into the future.
Thank you, Eric. This is awesome. I'll take questions. I think there are a few questions. I think we already answered them, but just in case we have not, or if we need anything else, I'll just read out from Sahil. He says that while AI surely presents itself as a solution for activities which require heavy data churning, what are the key additions that AI will do vis-a-vis the lawyers, financial experts, or other professionals that are engaged for concluding the merger? I think this question was put before we covered a lot of things, but so in my mind, it's already covered, but let me just complete it. Also, do you feel that AI will overhaul the process, including the key elements involved of merger? Will it at all times be mere facilitator in terms of data analytics, etc.? Do you want to add any questions, any response to this, Eric?
I think largely we've covered the question, Vaibhav. So I'm not sure there's much else to answer.
Yeah.
Look, some of it's going to take time, right? As we talked about short, medium, and longer term. I'll just digress for one moment, which is, as I was thinking about this session, Vaibhav, yesterday, I had the benefit of sitting next to me in this office, who he's not usually here, is our Chief Solutions Officer. And so he said to me, the way to think about, because we talked specifically about M&A is, it's a clean sheet. Don't be hamstrung by what's the process now, or how it works now, or think about these things necessarily in silos. He said, think about it as ultimately an integrated straight through processing. And I think it's exciting to think about it that way. What's the clean sheet? And then from that would flow short, medium, and longer term activities.
Yeah, thank you. Couple of more questions, which I think we already addressed it. Pratibha is asking, what does a future law firm look like with AI? It's $1 billion question. If we all knew it, we'll all be going towards it. but we have addressed that future law firm, to some extent. As I mentioned, I think future law firm will look like, more like legal tech firm. Legal tech firm will look more like law firms. Things are going to be in a situation where some roles will be redundant and people will need to think more on what they will do. I don't expect that certain portion will be completely eliminated. I think people will actually just adapt to use this technology over a period of time and start doing other things than what they've been doing today. That's the way it is. There is one from Alekhya, sorry about that. How can legal professionals brace themselves or prepare for growing integration of AI in M&A and other practice? I think it's the same question which we just talked about, so maybe we will pass in interest of time. Anushka is asking question, what are some real-world examples where AI has been successfully implemented to improve decision-making and efficiency in cross-border M&A, due diligence, or post-merger integration? Do you have any examples which you can talk about? real life examples which are not confidential?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned one earlier, which was some work we did for a PE firm in in the diligence world, and I think we've alluded to some already. So I think not other ones that I can necessarily speak to, but I think we've given some examples. I guess I'll just, for a moment, I know you said it, is the line that my CEO said, which is, I think we all need to think about, not that we'll be replaced, but that if we don't embrace the technology and learn about the technology, then maybe we will be replaced. And I think that's what, for me, has always been exciting about the practice of law, right? Is that there's so much to learn. Every day I come into work and I learn more, not just about the law, and I'm lucky enough to work in a technology company, but to learn about the technologies, to keep abreast of what's going on. So I would just say I encourage you all to open up your minds to new technologies, learn what you can, read what you can, and just absorb all you can so that you're ready for whatever the next technology is.
Thank you, Eric. And with this, we conclude. I am giving it to Payal, who is India co-chair for South Asia, India, and Oceania Committee of ABA. Payal, over to you for vote of thanks, and good to see you.
Thank you so much, Vaibhav. Thanks a lot. Firstly, thank you so much, Eric, for taking the time out. I really wanted to tell you that this is a new initiative which we started in 2025 of having this session where we have general counsels joining us over a period of sessions which we want to do probably once every month, given the availability of everyone. And the idea is to know how y'all would think of a situation. And it's great to know we keep discussing amongst lawyers in the law firms, but it's good to get the perspective on the other side. And I'm glad we kickstarted the session with you today. Thank you so much for taking time and sharing your insights with us. The few things I wanted to share for the benefit of everyone who joined us today, as on behalf of the ABA India Southeast Asia Oceania Committee, is not, along with this series, we have also geared up for this year where we want to take up a few new initiatives, especially in addition to the conferences, which everyone knows that the ABA International Law section does these conferences, and not just the annual flagship event which happens in New York, but we are also having the Asia Pacific session, which is going to have end of this month itself in Singapore. Some of us are going to be there in Singapore, so if you're around, we'll be very happy to meet and say hello. In addition to that, another unique thing which we thought of doing is, especially for our members who are based in India and Southeast Asia, we do have conferences annually, but we thought let's give it a spin this year. And the idea is to have a delegation of US lawyers coming into India and not do conferences anymore. It's become sort of a trend that similar topics, similar panel discussions. We thought let's have more informal meetings, maybe try and meet up a little bit more of the bureaucrats, legislators, as well as judges to understand what's happening more from both from a legal and commercial perspective from both India-US relationships. I think yesterday when everybody woke up to the executive order, I think everyone has had different reactions to it. Me, especially focusing on investigations practice, I think my first thought is what's going to happen to my practice area now with the impact of this order and the stay on the enforcement. How are the companies going to look at this situation? Obviously, the devil lies in the detail. It's just an executive order, but it's going to have an impact globally. So I think there are larger issues, and everybody is looking forward to the Modi visit. There's a lot more which is going to come up post that. So I think there's a lot of scope for discussions between India-US corridor, and we are looking forward to hosting a delegation in September in both Mumbai and Delhi. And obviously, last but not the least, I think I'm going to encourage more and more members, non-members, to start contributing towards our newsletter. We are going to be releasing our first newsletter this quarter, hopefully by the end of this month itself. And the beauty of this newsletter is we realized we shouldn't bound people with topics. We should have topics of free flowing, which are of relevance in the current context, so that we can have more and more contributions, not just from people only in the India-US corridor, but it's a committee which is for the entire Southeast Asia. So we encourage more of our members from the Southeast Asian countries to actually contribute, but obviously with the underlying focus that how this entire market is developing, both from a US and the Southeast Asia perspective. So on that note, I think I've already exceeded my time. I think we can thank you, Eric, so much for joining us, and thank you everyone for being here.